Welcome to the Enduro Method podcast. Enduro Method is an online strength and conditioning program built for those who ride by those who ride. We are professional coaches dedicated to building the best and most revolutionary off-the-bike training for dirt bikers around. We are offering a special discount for our podcast listeners. Use discount code EMPodcast22 for 50% off your first month. For more information, head to the description of this podcast where you can find the discount code and a link for more information and to sign up. Today, we will be discussing 5 possible mistakes you might be making in the gym, and we also talk about how they could be ruining or being a hindrance to your gains. So without further ado, please enjoy. All right, and we are live. Welcome to the Enduro Method podcast. Just Dane and Josh today. And we are going to be talking about 5 mistakes you're making in the gym. Dun, dun, dun. Just wanted to give a quick update on, I guess, our lives. Because I don't know if you care about our lives, but we're going to tell you what we've been up to. I guess we haven't really hopped on the podcast since Grinding Stone, or since a while together. You've done a lot of interviews, which have been awesome. But yeah, we went to Grinding Stone. We were there, and tomorrow, when this podcast launches, we'll actually be off to Billings and heading up to the Bentonite Brawl in Billings. And you're going to be racing in that one.
Yep. Excited to be back. Was bummed about missing Grinding Stone, but had a hamstring injury the weekend before. Actually riding. First time I'd ridden since we were down in the desert over the winter. And then had a fluky, stupid little tip over, or like slide out, and ended up with a grade 2. We're kind of guessing on the grade 2, but a pretty severe hamstring strain / tear. So 2-spot injury on the hamstring, one at where the hamstring attaches kind of at the top on the bottom of the pelvis, and then mid-belly or middle muscle. So this will be 6 weeks this weekend from injury, and I'd say it's like 90%. It's not full.
That's good.
I'm kind of still avoiding like heavy loading of deadlifts or RDLs or stuff where I'm putting a big stretch on there. I can get into it body weight now, which is really good. And then, so anyways, gonna race.
What are some of the things you did to rehab it?
Rest in the beginning. It was pretty fucked up when it happened. Like, it was instant. I heard there's audible noises, so 2 pops, and then instant pain. Like, I still had function, and so I knew it probably wasn't torn, like off the bone or anything, but yeah, it was hurt. And so like sitting in the truck on the way home was very painful. That weekend was really bad. Like, even getting in and out of a chair was almost, I had to keep my legs straight. Any type of bend would hurt. Sitting on it hurt, so I kind of had to lay down. So the first week was just literally trying not to use it. So anytime I did have to bend over, it was like legs straight out behind me kind of thing.
But you were progressing pretty fast, because I know this was a week out from Grinding Stone, but you were pretty convinced that you were still going to race.
That's because I'm an idiot. Yeah. But I was in denial at that point. Cause like,
but you were like, it's getting better. It's getting better.
Well, it was getting better, but it wasn't. It would have been I probably would have fully torn it, I think, if I would have tried to do Grinding Stone. I was just like mostly in denial.
You were susceptible to it if the wrong thing would have happened.
I would feel nauseous if I bent too far over. Like, I get a sick feeling, and it didn't feel like it's like when your muscles are sore and you're trying to avoid like stretching it or sitting on a toilet or something like that, and it's painful. That would have felt good or better than what this felt very like, if I go further, something's gonna pop. Like, it was not. Yeah, it was bad. So went to the local PT here that following week, or maybe it was that end of the week. I think I got my first kind of assessment, and then talked to them some, and got a better idea of whether I was going to be a complete idiot if I raced. And the consensus was yes, don't. And then when we got to Grinding Stone, I was walking the course and slipped on a rock and almost fucked it up even worse. And I was like, yeah, okay, so if you're walking and almost hurt yourself, you shouldn't.
Maybe not a good idea.
Maybe not a good idea. So anyways, didn't race, and then did another probably 3 weeks of PT. So a lot of isometrics, and then just increasing that in difficulty as it got better. So using pain as a guide. So like on a 1 out of 10 scale, 10's really painful, 1's less. I'd work up to maybe a 3 or a 4, and then work in that range with isometrics and eccentrics of various kinds, and then challenging it more with instability in those positions as well. So let's say you start on something like a box with your heel on a box, you pull your hips up and hold for a certain amount of time, and then a long lowering, and then as that started to get stronger and feel better, you could move that to like a instability ball, right? Like a big physio ball. And so that was kind of the process. And then once that became less painful, down into that 2 or 3, and there was no reoccurring pain later that day from having the exercise or the next day, then increasing range of motion, and eventually back into training basically full time, just avoiding the things that hurt it. So squats came back first, which was great. And then, like I said, I'm still not fully loading deadlift, RDLs, and stuff like that yet. But getting close.
Yep. And you were still able to train, around it.
Yeah, the good thing was I could, a bike, like a stationary bike. We have Concept 2 bike ergs. Those didn't hurt it at all, even when I couldn't bend over. Mm-hmm. So it was great to be able to get on a bike. I could still get a shit ton of blood flow going, keep the cardio fitness up, keep the aerobic work going. So I've spent a lot of time in the last couple weeks on a bike.
So this is actually not a part of our 5 mistakes you're making in the gym. But here's a mistake you could potentially be making in the gym. 2 parts. Part 1, you are not working out because you're injured. Work around the injury if you can.
Yep, work around the injury. And
Part
for
2,
mental health as well. I mean, that was a major player because I was so pissed that, the last thing you want to feel like is that you're going backwards.
Yeah.
So this was able to help me feel like I was, even though I'm, can't do what I want to do, I'm still making progress, or at least staying where I was. Because I'd put in a bunch of stupid long workouts leading up to Grinding Stone, because we can't ride yet. So I was doing some long hours on the weekends, and I really wanted to see how that benefited me. And then just to have it shut down and all that felt like it was for naught. It was very irritating. So sorry.
I think I might have just lost part 2. Part 2 of my reason 0. I think it was taking your rehab seriously and being structured in your progression of it. So I know you were very methodical of it, starting with actual going to PT, but then sticking with stuff and then, creating, like getting back to where you were, like doing those isometrics and moving into eccentrics. So like, obviously, basic what to do. Like a hamstring strain is a pretty common thing, and there's a lot of information out there on it. And so, having a structure to your rehab and then doing it.
Well, you got to do it, yeah.
There's mistake 0 is that you're not doing anything to improve your injury. Okay.
Well, and we're not even talking about injuries, right?
Yeah.
But that does lead nicely into our first one of 5 mistakes you're making in the gym.
Okay, so here we go. Mistake number 1 you're making in the gym.
Inconsistency. So consistency is king. Any program done with some consistency will work. I mean, across the board. It could literally be like a push-up and air squat program. But if you do it consistently for a couple weeks or a couple months, you will get way better at the things that you've done. Is it maybe the best program for you? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But if you don't do it, it's not going to work regardless. So anything will work as long as you do it consistently over a long enough time duration. Now, of course, depending on what goals you have, it would be important to try and align those goals with the program that you choose. But anything done is going to be a benefit.
Yeah. You never know until you actually see it through.
Yeah, I mean the biggest downside's inconsistency. Like I know, for me, obviously, I want a program that aligns with what I want to achieve, which would be Enduro Method for hard enduro work, riding or enduro, any type of dirt biking, more or less. There's, depending on your discipline, there's definitely a case to be made for different styles and changing up conditioning protocols and stuff like that for something, let's say like motocross, which is, typically 20 minutes or less, than hard enduro, which can be 4 hours or multiple races in a day or that are longer in duration, days to back to day kind of thing. And maybe motocross where you're 10 minutes on the track a couple times a day and then a longer 20-minute effort, right? Those definitely different styles of conditioning need to be emphasized. But in general, there's going to be a lot of characteristics of that have overlap. And from a strength perspective, again, because our sport is on the bike, not in the gym, we need a program that helps us get stronger and incorporates conditioning work because it's so important to what we do, versus something that maybe is focused like a bodybuilding split or something that is sole purpose of just gaining strength for aesthetics. Now, again, if you've never done anything and you did a program that gave you that strength for aesthetics, that's going to be a massive benefit. It just might not be as good a benefit as something that's geared toward specifically, the sports that you're doing, because the sport is the sport of aesthetics and not necessarily the sport of enduro. But
so whatever
if you're consistent,
you choose to do,
do it consistently.
Do it consistently.
Yeah, and I mean, what's important there is buying into what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it helps to have buy-in because you believe that it's built for the thing that you want to achieve. That's something. So it's harder to be bought into something that isn't maybe taking you in the right direction. Mm-hmm. But if you got buy-in and you're consistent, you're going to make progress.
All right, number 2, mistake you're making in the gym. Shiny object syndrome.
So this would be, could be, and you could have consistency through shiny object syndrome. So you could consistently jump from one program to the next program to the next program to the next program, and you could still be working out, let's say 4 or 5 days a week, and probably still make progress. My thing would be that you could make more progress if you stayed with something that was built out methodically and had good sound principles behind it to begin with. And then you stuck with that long enough to get those adaptations.
Shiny object syndrome is not sticking with a program.
Totally.
Jumping around programs, choosing this, doing this, being random with your stuff, not methodical as to what you're doing. I think what you're getting at is more of like, you see this person doing this, so you try this for a week, and then, look what they're doing. I'm going to try that next week.
You saw.
Look what they're doing. Next. There's not really a solid formula to what you're doing. You're just like shiny object syndrome,
totally.
Bouncing all over the place.
Ken Roxon was doing a split lunge with a banded knee distraction. Well, Ken Roxon's doing them. I should be doing them. Right, so you go do some of those in the gym. The next day, I don't know, whatever it is, you see some super cool core program that has a great deal of very enticing advertising by it, saying this is the best core program in the world, and if you do this, you're never going to get tired. So then you got to do that. And basically there's no magic to any of this stuff, and it's not that complicated in the big picture. Like, you need to get stronger, you need to get fitter, you need to do things on a daily basis that challenge you in some aspect of that.
Great. Well, that leads us to our next one. Do things that are challenging. Do you have anything to add on the shiny object thing?
Inconsistency is a big problem, but consistency in the right direction makes faster gains, and definitely more precise in those. Because doing random stuff isn't the worst thing in the world.
Better than nothing.
It's better than nothing, 100%. But you're definitely going to make more progress if you do stick with things that are built to help you along the way.
All right, mistake number 3, which you kind of just alluded to, not lifting heavy enough and not going hard enough.
So this one's important in the sense that, I mean, really quick, just lifting heavy weights doesn't make you bulky. So that shouldn't be something.
Which we've I think we have a whole podcast dedicated to.
And it just needs to be reiterated, because sometimes those things get thought about in the same light, and it's just not the case. Our goal is always to get stronger without adding a whole bunch of body mass. And if your goal is to add body mass, there's programs out there that would be way better than ours for that. I mean, hands down. And you also need to eat that way. But our goal is to add or maintain as much lean muscle mass as possible.
Hey, they could still come to us and just do one-on-one.
Totally. At a certain amount, right? Like, I say gain lean muscle mass, but I don't mean adding 10 pounds, right? I mean, a couple pounds here and there. But the other part of that is think about just making your muscles more efficient, right? So you can recruit more quicker. You're going to get stronger. And then, so we need to, within our, let's say we're doing a set of 5 back squat, as a good example. We know to make any changes in that strength, in the realm of strength, we need to be working at a certain percentage of our 1 rep max. Now, that percentage doesn't have to be perfect, but let's say I could squat.
And I don't think it needs to be a percentage. Well, I mean, overall it is a percentage, but it could be going off a feel.
No, totally. But what I'm getting at, I was just trying to make an example. So if it's a set of 5 back squat, for us to get anything out of that back squat, let's say I could do 1 back squat at 200 pounds. I need to be working at a weight that's heavy for that 5 reps. So typically, like 80% is a decent realm to be in for that 5, right? 80% of that 200. So that's 160 pounds. Now, if I'm doing 150 pounds or 170 pounds, we're all in that ballpark. That's good enough. Again, our sport's not the gym, but I need to be in that range, somewhere in there. And it doesn't even have to be exactly what I said, but it has to be closer. If I'm doing those back squats at 50 pounds, but my max is at 200, I'm so light for that amount of reps that I'm just not getting the adaptations that we're looking for. So we need to be lifting at a place that's hard, but there's no breakdown in technique. Form is great, but you are challenging yourself with the weight.
Mm-hmm.
So
stimulus.
Yeah, so like Dane said, the percentage work, I don't like programming percentage work for multiple reasons for this style of training. We actually don't really program percentage work at our gym. We'll use it as reference, but a lot of times people don't know what the rolling rep max is either. And those numbers change month to month. They change on how daily. You feel. They can change daily. So it's just a guide or a rough estimate. And if you do know those numbers, that's great, and you can reference them for rep ranges and stuff. But if you don't have them,
it's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world. But going by feel is a great way to do it. But to get the adaptations, you do need to be lifting on the heavy side for whatever exercise or rep range is specified.
You just need to be lifting heavy enough to feel a stimulus that you're looking to achieve.
Correct. Right. Then the same, sorry.
I was going to say not going hard enough.
Oh, yeah. The same stuff would apply for conditioning work. And we use a couple different titles, I guess, if you will, or stuff to kind of emphasize effort and we give protocols and intents with our conditioning work. And that stuff's real important to tune into and pay attention to same idea, to get the adaptation. Quick example, let's say we're trying to improve your VO2 max, right? Which would essentially be, it'll change a little bit on modalities, but you could use a 2K row, right? And find your pace. Let's say you did a 2K row for time, which is 2,000 meters for time on the rower. And let's say you did it at 8 minutes. So that's a 2 minute per 500 meters pace. So if we're doing interval work and we're trying to build up our VO2 max or increase our capacity, we know that we need to be rowing at real close to that pace or faster on those intervals to spend time in that area to build those systems, right? If we're doing our interval work, let's say at 2-minute 15 pace per 500, it's not that it's bad, and you're probably getting some aerobic adaptations, but you're not going to be tapping into the aerobic threshold and anaerobic system rowing in that area. So you want to be able to follow the intent, use intensity as a guide for whatever is being called out to help train in the right area. And just like on the flip side of that, if we were doing a 60-minute row for aerobic base building, if you went into that row at a 2K pace to begin with, like you're going to peak out real quick in like 4 or 5 minutes and then basically dive for 55 minutes or just quit, right? And you're handicapping the process that you're trying to get out of the aerobic work that way as well. So it is important to go as hard as is called out for, but then pay attention to intents and everything else for what style or what basically what system we're trying to improve.
Okay, numero cuatro. Uno, dos, tres.
4.
Is cuatro right?
I think so.
Cuatro. Number 4. Going too heavy too soon.
So this is kind of piggybacking off the other one, because it is important to note that if you go the opposite direction and you put too much weight on too fast, to where you're either breaking down technique or sacrificing range of motion to lift the weight, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're putting yourself at risk of injury, and you're definitely slowing down potential for long-term progress. And this could be a characteristic that you show in various different points of your life, or I don't know, ego could be involved. Who knows? There's multiple reasons for trying to lift too much weight too soon. But always better off starting low, letting yourself build up over time. Your progress is going to be better over long term, way less risk of injury when you do it the correct way. And thinking, it also helps put this stuff in perspective, because it goes back to point number 1. Like, it takes consistency over time to build this stuff. So if you try and fit it all in one day, you're doing yourself a disservice compared to backing it off, but making sure you're doing it every other day or whatever the protocol would be. Like, what I mean is, if you did 4 workouts in one day, but then made yourself so sore and tired that you couldn't train till next Monday, that is way less beneficial and actually probably detrimental to spreading those 4 workouts, let's say Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and then doing that the following week and doing that the following week, right? So you're allowing yourself time to recover and build instead of trying to blow it all out early. So going heavy too soon, too heavy too soon. We need to make sure that we're not sacrificing technique, form for the amount of weight that you can lift, not cutting range of motion short as weights get heavier.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me to do that one. Too many
No.
times.
See, and that's why it's interesting, because 3 and 4 are interchangeable depending on the person. Like some people literally, you have to push to go heavy enough because their default's like light. And then some people, you're over there just pulling weight off their bar. And you're like, no, you can't do that yet.
Yep.
Well, come on. And so it's worth talking about both. But
yeah. All right, last one. Mistake number 5 you're making in the gym is avoiding rest days. Never skip rest day.
Never skip a scheduled rest day, maybe. I don't know. This one's important, but also there's you gotta put the work in to deserve the rest day. But then when the rest day is there, you need to take it. Same with the deload week. We program in deload weeks, usually once every 3 months, at least. And so they're important. They give yourself a chance to recover. So do rest days, right? And depending on what you're doing outside the training stuff, you know, if you're on your bike on the weekends for long hours, or your job's really stressful, or maybe you get out during the weeknights too, who knows? But having down days to kind of reboot, eat food, recover, super important.
How many rest days a week do you need?
That's hard to say. That's going to be dependent on a lot of variables. Like complete rest, active rest.
How many complete rest?
I'd say one.
How many active rest?
Depends what active rest you're talking about, but I'd say
you need at least 1 day of rest per week, and that day could include very mellow active recovery.
Yeah.
And that would be like not even in the zones. Like
walking. Not necessarily hiking, because hiking can be intense.
Right, yeah.
That's the hard part, and that's why it's interesting. Like, do you remember, I mean, if you're in the CrossFit world, this used to be one of my major pet peeves, if you will, I guess. Like, because you watch some of these top CrossFit athletes and they do this 30-minute fucking EMOM that's like GHD sit-ups and calories, and it's like a hard looking EMOM, and in their section would be like, just knock this out on my rest day, and it's like, that's not a rest day. Stop. That's a terrible thing to promote. Like, here's a 30-minute EMOM that most people can't even do, and yet they're out there promoting it like, this is my day off. I just came in the gym real quick to knock this little workout out, you know. LOL, haha.
Well, like in reality, like for them, it could be considering.
Nope, it's not a rest day. Not the type of things I'm talking about.
Okay, well,
a rest day is what you're talking about.
Yeah. So this was an interesting thing. I'm kind of flipping it a little bit, but like, you know, if we're talking about CrossFit athletes specifically, one thing I heard once is that they spend the same amount, if not more, time recovering than they do training.
Yeah. The ones who are
at the elite level, which is probably goes for any sport.
Right.
You know, like you spend the same amount of time training yourself to recover than you do actually training yourself.
So for me, like thinking about this and putting it in context of like dirt biking, going out on a 4-hour trail ride is not a rest day. Like, even if it's a trail ride, 4 hours of activity, because parts of the trail are probably hard. Like that's more than a rest day. A rest day could be going out on a trials bike or your big bike and practicing some drills for a half hour.
Or I was gonna say, like, if you go out with if you have kids, like you went out and you're teaching your kid how to ride or something. Maybe. Like I could see that being a rest day.
Totally, but I was thinking more, I guess, like, a 4-hour ride with your friends on a trail ride. Like, parts of that are not going to be a trail ride.
Well, you just said with your friends, and you know.
Well, you just said your kid, so we're trying to put it in perspective. Like, one could be.
Yeah.
And one might be verging
push yourself
on.
To prove yourself to your friends.
Well, exactly. One might be verging toward, like, you're playing a game with energy balance, right? we're trying to put ourselves in a slight deficit through training, and then we're trying to use rest days to come and bounce back up above where we were. And over time, done correctly, you're going to go through stress, adaptation, and come out fitter and stronger than you were previously. Like, that's a game. So, but if you continue this downward spiral of work, and you never recover,
you're just digging yourself a hole.
You're not making the adaptations that you're looking for. And that's because training is destruction.
I would also like to say too, like, I mean, we've had this gym here now. I mean, I've been in the field, 10 plus years. And like, you'd be surprised on the adaptation people receive from a program that's 3 times a week, which doesn't seem a lot like to you and I maybe, but like a 3-time-a-weeker.
Yep.
I mean,
consistency.
I know. And that's perfect.
It's great.
And that's 3, that's essentially how many days are in a week? You're essentially training 3 and working and not training for 4. So, right. But like, I've seen, I mean, at our gym, like, we have people that go 3 times a week and they are meeting their goals 100%.
Right. I mean, our program's 4 days a week. In the big picture, that's not a lot, and it's not 2-a-days. It's about an hour, give or take 45 to an hour 15 per session, 4 days a week.
It's not a lot of time commitment.
Nope. But it is too, like, because we all got shit to do. We got jobs, we got families, we got friends, we got hobbies. Like, it adds up and it goes by real fast. But that's where that consistency piece, like, when you look back on your year, I bet you for the most part, if you worked out and sacrificed or took that time to put in the commitment to work out, you're not going to look back in that year and be like, oh my God, I spent all that time working out when I could have been drinking beer and sitting in a lawn chair instead, right? Like, but if you drink beer and sit in a lawn chair all year and you're 10 pounds heavier and you're looking back and going, oh man, I wish I would have worked out more.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah. All right, well, there's your 5 mistakes you're making at the gym.
Possible mistakes. Or at home. Maybe you don't have a gym. Maybe you got a garage gym.
5 mistakes you're making. 5 mistakes you're making in your training. Maybe we'll change it to that. We'll see. Not cropping the audio for any of this. Anyways, that sums it up. Thanks for listening. If you happen to be listening to this and you're driving yourself to Billings, we will have our Enduro Method stuff out, but you should definitely come say hi. I think we'll have swag there if you want to come get some cool stuff that says Enduro Method. Definitely come say hi, though. Come introduce yourselves. Maybe we'll give away some free training. We tried to grinding stone. Yeah. So, thanks for listening. Anything else you want to add?
No. Yeah, if you're at Billings, come say hi.
Okay. You can find us on Instagram at Enduro Method. You can find us on our website, enduromethod.com. You can also send us an email there as well if you have any specific questions, needs, desires. We're on Facebook at Enduro Method. And there's a special podcast discount to all of our, a special discount to all of our podcast listeners. That's in the little roll that you'll hear after this. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you. We do this every 2 weeks, so we'll see you in a couple weeks. Maybe we'll do a Bet Night Brawl recap. Maybe we'll do that. I'll tell you my recap right now. I picked my bike up 1,000,000 times and didn't make it up a bajillion hills.
I know.
All right, that's it. Thanks.
Bye.
We'll see you next time.